Hello, friends. Welcome. I'm so excited to be here. Happy New Year. I hope everybody had a good holiday season, a good December. Mine was interesting. That's to say the least. December was a little bit of a void for me. I got sick at the end of November, and then I went away from the 2nd to the 8th, which I don't even think I posted about at all. I went to BC for a week and then came home for a day and got the flu. So that was fun. That one knocked me down pretty good, the flu. It took me a hot minute to come back to life after that. I think that sometimes after a lot of change, we almost need this kind of nudge to integrate all that change. And I think that's sometimes what happens when we get sick. It's often a big reset for us. So December was a huge reset for me. I went into a little bit of a dark hole for a little while there, being sick by myself and just being out of my routine. And I'm guessing just from, I think that a lot of times sickness messes with your gut. And I find that, between like all the things that you're taking, the vitamins, maybe like the cold and flu medications or whatever. And I think that, our guts are so connected to our mental health. And so, yeah, that and just not feeling well enough to do the things that make me feel happy. Just kind of slumming around. And I always say, like, sometimes it feels good to slum around for like a day or two, but anything more than two, like even if you're really, really burnt out, I find it always feels better to just be a little bit productive and then kind of rest. And maybe that's because I'm still stretching my nervous system's capability of truly resting, or maybe it just doesn't feel good for me to just slum around. I'm not sure, but needless to say, I am back on track, and I know that probably a lot of you have been sick or are sick. It seems like kind of everyone in the entire world is getting sick right now, and it's just so crazy. And it's weird because usually when you get like being sick once, like that's usually it. You don't get sick twice in a year, but I don't know, I guess this year is just special. So, anyways, I am just, like I said, so excited to be back in my routine, so excited to be here, so excited to have you guys. I have been really spending these last few months really trying to get laser focused on my journey and my purpose and what's next for me and what feels good. And I've finally truly allowed myself to dream and to open up. Like I feel like I have been blossoming like a flower, and it's because I've created this ecosystem of support around me. I've created such a safe space for myself financially, with my home, my support system, my family, friends, my work. And I just have this freedom now to do whatever my heart desires and to create whatever my heart desires. And I was just reminiscing time so many years ago where, well, I shouldn't say so many years ago because it was probably like 5, where I was sitting in my living room and I remember reading about EMDR and being so interested in it. But then seeing that I'm pretty sure I had to have like, my psychology training or whatever before I could even do that. And I was so discouraged and I was so desperately wanted to find a way out of plumbing, but I just didn't see what was possible for myself because I was so stuck in my world of, everyone around me was doing the same thing as me. Everyone around me was working in the trades and miserable and wanting to get out but not knowing how. And maybe you don't work in the trades, but maybe you are in a similar work environment and, everybody's just miserable and everybody's working for the weekend. And I was on the phone with this woman that works at Sleep Country. I just bought a new mattress over the holidays, and I was chatting with her, and she was like asking me about my day, and she was asking me if I was busy, and I was like, oh no, I'm having a low-key day at home. And she's, oh, I wish I could be at home, but I'm stuck going to work here and all this stuff. And you could just tell by her demeanor that she was kind of miserable in her job, and by her work ethic you could tell she was pretty miserable. I just remember thinking, like, you're not stuck. But it's so sad how we put these limitations on ourselves just because we don't know that more is possible for us. And I remember when I first took my somatic training, and I think just watching videos from my somatic teacher, and I just remember her saying, like, oh, like, I have this $30 course, and, I sold it, like, I don't know, like 5,000 times or something like that. And I was like, holy shit, like, that is insane that, you can just create a course and sell it and make all this money online. And when I was looking for somatic training, I was looking at the somatic experiencing, and I was so just at this place in my career where I was like, I have to be done now. I cannot wait 3 more years to get certified so I can start something new. And this teacher, she had done somatic experiencing, and she had been working with plant medicines for 6 years, and she took everything that she learned from working with plant medicines and her somatic experiencing and distilled it into this 2-month certification that was just this beautiful offering. But that's kind of besides the point. The point is I was so stuck in this fear that I was going to have to go back to school for years and years and years to be able to do what I wanted to do, to be able to help people and all this stuff. And I was just so unaware at that time of how many options I had, and I think that that's very common for a lot of us. And I'm not discrediting like going to university and going to school and all that stuff, but I do very much think that we're in an age where you can really get by without a formal education. And I almost feel that people are becoming more successful without the formal education. And I don't think that it's a waste of time or a waste of money by any means. I just don't think that we have to limit ourselves to thinking that we need that to have the life of our dreams. And of course, I continue to educate myself more and more, and to deepen my experience of my somatic work. And I always will. I will always be learning. I believe that, we should always be deepening our craft and learning what's new, because things are always changing. And yeah, so maybe you found yourself in a similar situation where you are wanting to change your life, but you don't know how, you don't know where to start. And I know that for me, there was many different things that I did on the path to actually finding what I wanted to use to move forward in my life and my career. And I'm talking a lot about career today because to me, when I'm creating the life of my dreams, my career is such a huge portion of that. And like, it's my passion, it's my purpose, a very large portion of my purpose. Of course, I don't think that just work is our purpose. I think that expressing ourselves authentically in the ways that we want to express ourselves, whether that be just, like creating art for fun or doing whatever for fun, that I don't think that always has to be work. And so there was many things that I tried along the way. I tried with my mom to do skincare, and I never ended up, I didn't have enough passion for it. So I just couldn't, there was nothing behind the drive to continue moving forward. So I did that, and I did my yoga teacher training, which I ended up teaching yoga for 2 years, but never really loved. However, I do think all of these things are stepping stones to get to where we want to go. Like my plumbing career, there's so much that valuable experience that I had there, and every single thing that I've done along the way has been valuable experience for me to run my business and to get to where I need to be, whether that's even just like lessons along the way. What else did I do? I took a psychology class. I started doing that. I thought I was going to get my degree and then my master's. I don't think it's your degree. I think it's like, I don't know, I can't remember what it is. But anyways, I started doing that. Like there was many things that I did on the way to finding somatic training. And then when I found the somatic training, the energy healing came right alongside it. And I think it's so intertwined. It's, like the same thing. But when I found all the somatic work and the energy work, it just felt like magic to me. And I was so hooked and I was so obsessed. It was like I was thirsty. I just wanted to drink whatever they had to offer me, and I still feel like that. And that's how I know that this is my path. This is my lane. And I have so much spaciousness between the somatics and the energy healing and, Reiki and all this magic stuff that's like, it just feels so expansive and fun for me. But back to, my somatic teacher, she was the first person in my entire life that showed me that a different life than what I was living was possible. And I think we live in such a cool day and age with the internet that we are able to see people outside of our little circle. And there are some things that I had to do and that had to happen before I had the space to receive the somatic training and all that stuff. And I really had to make this space in my life. And I do think that, taking the psychology course and doing my yoga teacher training, it was stretching me. It was getting me out of my comfort zone of just my normal, blah, whatever, monotonous, like, life, and getting me into the energy of being open to trying new things, to learning, to investing time into myself and being dedicated to myself, to want a better life for myself. I had to really clean up my boundaries with everything in my life to get to that point. As I have talked about before, I was doing a lot of partying. I got to the point where my relationship with alcohol just had to change. I'd never really been a huge drinker, like I wasn't a heavy drinker. And the last summer that I was drinking, I was just going so hard. And there was just one night where there was a couple of nights where I just completely blacked out the last 2 times I drank and just did not have a good time at all. And it really opened my eyes to the fact that I had to stop. And I had been kind of warming up with my therapist at the time, talking about getting sober and how there was people that didn't drink and blah, 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 all this stuff. And working in the trades, like, everyone drinks. Like, everything is revolved around drinking. But I was having a problem with it to the point where I was staying up way too late. And, having those late nights was bleeding into my weeks and making me feel just tired and anxious and depressed. And like I used to always say, like, Mondays I would be oftentimes on suicide watch because you are just in such a dark place of like self-loathing that it feels scary, like not good. I can't tell you how many Mondays, Sundays, and Mondays that I felt like that before I finally had the courage and the amount of self-love and self-respect to take a break and to change my whole relationship with alcohol. And that was one of the biggest things that changed my life and helped me create space for what was to come next. And that might not be your story and that might not be the case for you, but I guarantee you there's probably something in your life that you can think of right now that is consuming a lot of your time and a lot of your energy and is not serving you at all, that you can start to maybe heal your relationship with and take a step away from. As I, move along in my journey, I clean up my boundaries with everything more and more and more. And one of the biggest ones is my phone. And I think that's one of all of our biggest time wasters is our phones. And so as I move forward, that's something that I'm continuing to clean up more and more, because every single phase of expansion requires a deeper level of honesty and being self-led and presence and just clearing that space. And so there was lots of things that I did, but I would say that one of the biggest things was like my dedication to myself in believing that I was capable of having the life that I truly desire. I am somebody who has always had low energy. I'm a projector in human design. If you're familiar with human design, there's 5 different energy types, and I always thought that something was wrong with me because I always felt so burnt out. And even the times where I was working like only 8-hour days, I was still so exhausted. And I always thought something was wrong with me, but there was nothing wrong with me. I'm just somebody who really needs to be careful with my energy, and I'm not meant to be running up and down stairs, running up and down ladders and lifting heavy pipe across sites, and that's just not what I was meant to do. So it was draining me physically, and it was also depleting me mentally and spiritually and emotionally. And if I'm being honest, if I had quit drinking way back in my 20s, I think I was probably, I want to say like 30, 31 when I quit. If I had quit drinking in my 30s or in my 20s, I would have gotten my shit together a lot earlier. But I think that we all have our journey, and everything does happen in the divine timing that it should. And that's another thing that's been coming up for me a lot lately is using nature as a teacher and tapping into the spirit of the land around me and just getting curious on like what this land around me has to share with me and what it has for me to heal. Because I think that when we are called to live somewhere, when we are called to go somewhere, it's because that land has something to teach us. And lately, something that's been coming up a lot for me is being grateful for the season of life that I'm in and trusting that the next season will unfold in the perfect time that it's meant to. And because I have been feeling very much like I'm not where I want to be in my business at this exact moment in time. And just feeling some type of way about where I think I should be and where I am, and having these negative thoughts and feelings about it. And one of the messages that come through is like so basic but so potent, and it's like the seasons you cannot force a flower to bloom before it is ready, right? Like if the trees sprouted right now in the winter, those leaves would shrivel off and die. And just like those leaves, you are, nurturing your roots right now, and you have the spaciousness to do that. And when the time is right, those leaves or those flowers will come out and they will start to bloom. So that's been something that I've kind of been working on and working with lately, is enjoying the season of life that I'm in and feeling gratitude for what I have right now, because we get into this rat race of like, here are the things I want, and oftentimes things end up coming to us not in the way that we expected, and we cling to the idea of that we wanted things to come in that way, and because they didn't come in that way, we're still wanting for that, whatever it is. Like for instance, I am totally and divinely supported right now, but I'm wanting more flow and more support from my business than maybe I'm actually ready for. And I was just talking to my mentor about this yesterday, like how, sometimes when we are in these downtimes, we think we want all these things, but we're not actually ready for them. And so what I've been doing lately is like doing the back end and preparing for that next phase, that next busy phase, and just enjoying that I'm not super busy in my business right now because I have all of this space to decide what I want to create next. And that feels so delicious to me. And something that having all of this spaciousness has really taught me is that I could have still felt all of these things without the spaciousness, but I didn't allow myself to. And that's the message that I really want to get across to you today, is that you can create whatever you want to create. It doesn't matter that you're busy, you don't have time, you're tired, you don't feel ready, you have no idea what you want to do, you don't even really know exactly like what you want your life to look like. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to start, maybe figuring out like the elements of what it is that you want. Like to me, freedom is really important, and having spaciousness to get into my feminine flow. I could have created more container for myself to experience that back in my plumbing days if I had just sat down and created more time and space and just had the belief in myself that different was possible and more was possible. Something I always talk about is before we experience the expansion, before we experience the change in our lives, what has to happen is an energy shift. We have to shift the energy to become a magnet for what it is that we want, right? And you can hustle your way into anything, but when you get there, it's not going to feel good. It's not going to be sustainable. And so I talk about this all the time, like how to shift your energy and how to prepare yourself for that next level of expansion, and how to lean into the feelings and the emotions of how it is you actually want to feel, because that's really the meat and potatoes of it, right? Like everything in our lives that we want, that we desire, it's not necessarily the actual thing, it's the feeling that we get from that thing. Something that's really been going around lately is this whole like be delulu, like all this stuff, right? And I think that it's hard for us to grasp, but the thing is to the mainstream society, believing and desiring more for yourself and desiring to have a life that's like exactly what you want sounds delusional. But once you start to shift into this world of seeing what is possible for yourself, it's not delulu, okay? It's real. Something that I think that we forget, as being all of us connected to Source, being one with Source, being made in the image of God, we are all creators just like Him. We are all creators just like God. We can play, we can create. And once we realize that, that's where life starts to get really fun. But then I also want to bring in like this other piece. And there's a quote by Carl Jung. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And that really resonated with me and stuck with me, because we create from not just our conscious mind, but mostly from our subconscious. So if there's stuff going on in our subconscious that is in resistance to what we consciously desire, it will stop us from having all the things that we want. And so that's why I love somatic work so much, because it helps us to come into contact with those parts that are in resistance to what it is that we want. And how we do that is by bringing safety into the nervous system. So in a session, what I would do is I take as much time as needed to ground a client in to their body until I can see a shift in the way that they're talking, the way that they're holding themselves, the way that they're breathing. And then we start to let the awareness go to where it wants to go. And usually once we've created enough safety in the system, the awareness can freely go to where it wants to go, whether that be an area of tension or an area of expansion, that we can safely explore the parts that are waiting to be felt. And the amazing thing about these sessions is this is something, that you can do yourself. Of course, having a facilitator, someone that's observing you and holding the space for you, it can really help us to be able to go so much deeper than we are able to go on our own. But I always think that it's so important to be self-led. And this is something that you can do on your own, making sure that you're fully grounded and regulated. And then taking the time to explore what's coming up for you in your body, what's wanting to be felt, how is your body wanting to talk to you. So that is my suggestion to you, to start to hold space for yourself, to hold the vision of what it is that you want or how it is that you want to feel, and see what comes up. Maybe it's a thought, maybe it's a feeling, maybe it's a visual, or maybe you're even struggling to come up with any of those. And that can also be a clue too, right? Like we always say in somatics, like nothingness is something. It's often the body's way of like a freeze response. And what we have to do to get that freeze response to thaw is to just sit with it and to be with it. Our nervous systems are, the gatekeepers of what we manifest in our lives. And in your nervous system's capacity for being able to hold these new experiences, it's not something that happens overnight. We have to stretch, right? And oftentimes the things that we truly deeply desire, we have wounding around them, right? For instance, I am deeply called to lead. And one of my biggest fears is public speaking. And so it hasn't been easy for me to step into my path, into my purpose. It's been extremely uncomfortable, and it continues to be uncomfortable, and it probably always will be. And that, to me, is a sign of this is how my soul wants to grow. This is how my soul wants to expand. And usually the things that we truly desire come with this expansion of and this edginess and this discomfort. And that's because we are being called on this path so that our soul can grow, so that our soul can expand, right? Like our soul chose this path before we were even born because it wanted to evolve, it wanted to grow, it wanted to change. And this path often isn't easy, along the way of my journey, I basically, did not resonate with almost every single one of my friends. And I completely changed my world. It completely changed my life. And it was extremely lonely and extremely uncomfortable. And I had to let go of a lot of things that just was extremely difficult for me. I think that's why, we will get this big vision of what we want or how we want to feel, but we will only be shown one step at a time. Because if we knew all the steps, we would be like, oh, hell no, I don't want to do that. Like, you would see, the future and you'd be like, no, that's way too scary and way too uncomfortable. I'm not doing that. But as we move forward in these steps and these phases of our lives, we stretch and we grow, and then we build a capacity for the discomfort that comes with the growth. And it's never, it's never anything that you're not capable of holding. Whereas maybe at some point in the past, you might not have had the capacity for that, but you will always build the capacity for the change and the discomfort that you need to experience in order to grow. And something that I want to talk about is just how we choose certain paths for ourselves based on the trauma that we have experienced in our lives and the programming that we have experienced in our lives, right? Like, I want to say that probably most people who are listening to this have watched most people in their lives move out, go to school, get married, get a job, have kids, in whatever order. And we think that this is what we are supposed to do. And then based on the trauma that we experience as children, we choose partners, we choose situations for ourselves that do not honor our needs, that perpetuate the wounding that we have experienced, because we will always choose situations and experiences that feel familiar to us, that are similar to the traumas we experienced as children, because our nervous systems are trying to have a different outcome. But oftentimes when we find ourselves in these positions, we're not actually experiencing a different outcome because we're not choosing what's in alignment for ourselves. We're not choosing what is in our best interest and what we actually deserve, because we don't yet have the self-love and the self-worth to want and choose better for ourselves. So we spend a lot of time trying to prove ourselves to people that are never going to love and accept us, or, trying to make ourselves feel or look worthy by working our asses off and getting the promotions or getting the big paychecks or getting the raise, whatever it is, and just never feeling fully satisfied, never feeling fully fulfilled. And for many of us who have been living in survival, well, we're never going to choose right for ourselves when we're living in a state of survival, because we're in our head and we're not in our body. We're not thinking clear. I always say this, like, if you're in a dysregulated state, you are not in your body. And most likely the reason for that is because whatever is going on in your body is feeling so uncomfortable. So we disconnect and we will, disassociate. Some of us will be in the headspace, and then some of us will just completely disassociate and just be on a completely other planet. And so the way out of that is, the first step is to start creating safety in your life. And it's funny because I never realized that I was living in a state of survival, probably really up until a couple of years ago. I had done so much work to heal my anxiety, and I had made a really huge dent in it. But when I finally came into my body, I was experiencing so much activation in my solar plexus that it was so uncomfortable for me. And I never realized that was just always going on. I just always had this pit in my stomach. And it's very common, like I see it in a lot of clients, where they don't think that they are dysregulated. But as soon as I, open space for them and start to observe the way that their nervous system is behaving, it's very clear to me that they are living in survival. And that's not to say that, like, if you are living in survival and that, your nervous system is maybe not as healthy as it should be, that it's going to be really hard and really difficult for you to heal your nervous system, because that's not the case. People who have been highly dysregulated have been very often easy to work on and easy to train their nervous system to pendulate and move between activation and deactivation like it's supposed to. That's the really amazing thing about somatic work, is that we're able to train and rewire the nervous system in a very short amount of time. I want to say, like, you're going to start to see a difference between like probably 2 or 3 or 4 sessions. Like you'll notice a difference after the first one, but you'll really start to see some results. And after 6 to 8 weeks, you can really almost completely and totally transform your entire nervous system. And we can always go deeper and deeper, right? Like, of course, like when you go through a big transformation like that, you really want to integrate. But it's really amazing the deep healing that can be found in somatic work in such a short amount of time. And I have lived it and I've experienced it myself. And it's just so amazing. And I always say, like, the body is an oracle for your future. Like the moments that I've had in somatic sessions where I am just so in the zone, so connected to this felt sense of purpose and this felt sense of where I need to go and this felt sense of support from my guides and angels around me. And everything, when you create safety in the system, everything starts to become so clear. And then when there's trauma and there's activation in the system that needs to be released so that we can, come in contact with these deeper truths, we're able to do that. And oftentimes that trauma and that release and that alchemization is connected to our purpose, it's connected to our mission, it's connected to where we are going, our south node. It's like that's where we came from, and it often shows us where our north node is, where we are going. And that's just the beautiful gift of being able to go so deeply inwards to uncover all of these hidden truths that are inside of us. I always say, like, all of the answers to your questions are, come through the body. Even if you are receiving messages from a spirit guide or God, whatever you believe in, you are receiving those in your human body as a human experience. And we can access that when we create the space and the landing for it in the body, and we create the quiet. Like, how often are you sitting for like an hour and 20 minutes and just exploring your inner landscape? That's what we do when you are in somatic session with me. It just makes me like excited to think about all of the stuff that comes through. And I have had clients where the stuff that has come up has been so unexpected for them, and it's helped them heal so much from the past. There's oftentimes things that we struggle with in life, and we just don't really know what the root cause is. We'll think we know. We'll have an idea of what we think it is. But when we're able to excavate into the subconscious, it reveals a totally different truth than what previously thought, right? And I know it kind of always feels like I'm hopping all over the place because I'm just kind of like going with whatever is flowing through me and whatever I feel. But like, this is, to me, my somatic work is how I help people create the life of their dreams. And it's so multifaceted in so many ways, right? Like, that's why I've kind of been changing and like playing with who I'm speaking to and what I want to help with, because previously my entire, goal and who I was speaking to was like helping people with their soul purpose and their mission. And that's still a really big part of what I desire to help people with. I've always been interested in so much more. Like, to me, it's like, how can we create the life of our dreams by healing our entire life? Like, I don't want to just help you with your career. I want to help you with every single aspect of your life, because work is, maybe more than half your life, but there's still all the other things. There's the relationships in your life. There's the things you do for fun. It's your family, your friends. Like there's so much, and I want to help you with all of it. Like, and in order to do that, we have to be able to express and release and let go of all the stuff and all the trauma and all the beliefs and all the emotions that we're holding on to so tightly. We're like wound up in this ball of yarn of all these things that aren't even ours. And how can we truly know what it is that we want until we start to release all of these things and these beliefs that have been put on us by other people? And that is literally what this work does, is it helps us unravel to the wholeness of our true selves so that we can connect with what it is that we truly desire. Because most of the choices in your life up until now, I guarantee you, have been made, like I said earlier, through like influences of your wounding, but influences of what you've seen and what you thought was expected of you. And so I just want to challenge you to open up your heart, to let love in, to let support come in, and to decide that you get to live whatever life you want, that you get to dream big, that you get to open up like a flower and continue to open up and expand and just feel so like the way that I feel. And it's like that when you feel the way that I feel, a lot of the time, it's something that you just want to share with other people so badly, because it's like, I know what it feels. I know what I used to feel like, and it's fucking sucked. And the way that I feel now, like I just got full body goosebumps, is like night and day. And I think that we all deserve to feel like this. And I'm not saying I feel good all the time. It's so far from true. I still feel fear. I still get in my head. Like, I'm honest with you guys about my struggles and the things that I go through and what I'm working on. But this feeling inside of like having this freedom and this openness to create whatever it is I want to create and to continue to explore that. Like, I believe that the possibilities are endless. And the more you open up, the more you continue to open up. Like, it's like a domino effect in the best way. And so I challenge you to start creating a big vision for yourself. Stop just moving away from what you don't want. Start to create that vision. I don't care if it feels like it's 5 years away. I guarantee you it is so much closer than you think. I guarantee you. And when you're creating this big vision for yourself, every time a thought comes up in resistance, like, I don't know how I could make that possible for myself. Oh my God, like this just seems impossible. Just let that go. Do not worry about the details. Do not worry about the money. Don't worry about the time. Don't worry about all the things that you might have to go through to get there. Who gives a fuck? You will deal with that in bite-sized pieces along the way. But I promise you, the journey is going to be so rewarding that all of the discomfort and the fear and the stickiness that comes up along the way is going to be so worth it. And that feels complete. So if that resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. If you are interested in working with me, I have 2 options right now to work with me for either 6 or 8 weeks. One somatic session a week, and then in Telegram, Monday to Friday, between work hours, you have access to me to ask questions and to check in between sessions and share what's going on, what's coming up, and all that stuff. In 6 to 8 weeks, you could completely transform your life. And this is for the people who know that they're being called for more, that they know it's time to step forward. These are the people that I am excited to work with. And so if you enjoyed the podcast, please share it with your friends. Please give me a 5-star review. And if you have any questions or suggestions on things that you would like me to speak on for the next podcast, please shoot me a DM or an email. I would love to hear from you. I hope everybody has a super amazing day. Bye for now.